Hello, everybody. 2 minutes past the hour with a show about reincarnation, the Leo Zagami show with Leo and Christy Zagami. Welcome, everybody, tuning in from all over the world for our new show on the Occult Illuminati secrets. We are now at part 7 of this new series, which is having a certain degree of success. Please pick up, of course, the names of all our sponsors, Christy.
Got him.
Okay, so who are the sponsors of today?
Okay, we have Peanut and Bruce and Holly Aris and Sean Rose, who sent a very nice picture. Thank you very much. You have a very nice family.
So Pina, Bruce,
Holly,
Aris,
and Sean Rose.
And Sean Rose. If we forget anybody, please write to us at Ordo Illuminatorum Universalis at gmail.com. Our email is in the description of this video. Welcome, everybody. Here we are. Our dance macabre. Okay, we have not so many people today, I must say. It's there were more people for the Super Bowl.
Next we're on time.
Well, next week we might do it on Saturday instead of Sunday.
Yeah,
we might. Okay. We always try out new solutions. Today the subject is reincarnation. Some people, of course, will wonder what is reincarnation. What has a reincarnation to do with the Illuminati? Well, it has a lot to do with the Illuminati. Illuminati, of course, in my own description, is not only the Order of the Illuminati of Adam Bishop, but the network of secret society, or a network of secret societies, which, of course, is inheriting maybe teachings that come from ancient mystery schools that believe in reincarnation. But actually, Freemasonry believes in reincarnation. So we're going to have a lot to discuss today. Certain Rosicrucian groups believe in reincarnation. So we have really a lot to discuss today, aside from, of course, reincarnation in a number of traditions and religious denominations. Even the old Christians, the first Christians, used to believe in reincarnation, like some Jewish groups. Actually, Judaism has always believed in reincarnation. Only lately there is groups that don't, of course, including the Reformed ones. But we know who they are. We will discuss in detail, of course, reincarnation within the Jewish tradition. So that's going to be interesting. But Christy, do you believe in reincarnation?
Yeah, I think I do.
You know that many Christians will be very highly critical of you for that.
But I don't know. I don't embrace it or anything.
Well, we live in the now. We live in the now in the sense that in the end, we might have lived previous lives, but we are living this one, which is definitely unique. And for that reason, we are living in the now, rather than those people who say, "Oh, I am the reincarnation of this or that," and they give so much importance.
You know who had a lot of people who are the reincarnation of, right? Mary Magdalene.
Oh, God. We're going to close the transmission. Okay. The Mary Magdalene syndrome.
Yes. I started calling it the Mary Magdalene syndrome.
Okay, so first of all, let's start talking about reincarnation. What is reincarnation? What is this doctrine, which is also known in other ways? I mean, reincarnation and rebirth, transmigration of the soul, metempsychosis. There is various way of calling reincarnation. Of course, we know that it's a central tenet of the Indian religions, also Tibetan Buddhism, but Buddhism in general. There is, even in Buddhism now, groups that don't believe in reincarnation, and we must say with great disappointment that even the Dalai Lama has renounced to his next reincarnation. It's a bit disappointing. We have Hinduism, of course, that believes in reincarnation, Jainism, Sikhism, the Sikh. We have, like I said, also I believe in metempsychosis that was held dear by the ancient Greeks, great philosophers like Pythagoras, Socrates, and Plato. And that's why maybe we have, of course, out of the ancient mystery school that, of course, came from Alexandria into Greece and then in some way survived, like I also talk in my latest volume 8 of my confession. I talk about the Pythagorean school that survives also through Freemasonry. We have also the Cathars within Christianity, but also we have the Alawites of Islam. We have the Druze, and like I said earlier, many Rosicrucians. I would say that all Rosicrucians believe in reincarnation. So we start, first of all, talking about this incredible subject within the realms of Freemasonry, because like we said, this is Occult Illuminati Secrets. We are at the 7th episode of this new series, and early Masonic literary sources for reincarnation or metempsychosis reference, of course, like I said, to Pythagoras, the Greek mysteries, and the later Neoplatonists. Examples also of ancient mysteries. For example, William Preston, who is known for his illustration of Masonry, which came out in 1772, refers to the philosophical notions of Pythagoras as including a doctrine of metempsychosis, of transmigration of soul into different bodies, and to the belief that as the soul was of celestial origin and could not be annihilated, and therefore upon abandoning one body, it necessarily moved into another, and frequently did penance for his former vicious inclinations in the shape of a beast, of an insect. This is something that happens also in Buddhism, before it appeared again in that of a human creature. And we read about this, like I said, in Masonic texts. According also to Albert Pike, we have reincarnation, and as you know, he was the great reformer of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite. And in fact, he discusses reincarnation in the 17th degree, the Night of the East and the West, which is based on the doctrine of rebirth. And later on, we have also another important degree, the 24th degree, the Prince of the Tabernacles, where he notes the importance of the teachings of metempsychosis as taught in the Indian mysteries and the fate of the soul to reincarnate in order to atone for sins that could only overcome by voluntary penance in the form of another physical life. Albert Pike, of course, also borrowed ideas like other Freemasons from the Jewish Kabbalah and the concept of the Gilgul, the rebirth, which is, like I said, found quite widely in Masonic teachings. Then we have Rosicrucian teachings, but let's stop a second here to discuss the Masonic ones and also the Jewish concept of the Gilgul, the rebirth, because this is rather important. So first of all, the 17th degree, which has also a specific jewel, a specific symbol, which of course I will show you now. This is a show today, Christy, that has to thank our sponsors, because really, thanks to these people, we are capable to really dedicate a lot more time into putting together this show, because this show doesn't just come out of nowhere. There's, of course, it's authored by me, and with the help here of my wife, I then deliver it to you in the form of this weekly appointment. And Pina, Bruce, Holly Areus, Sean Rose, we are really grateful for your sponsorship. And if you want to sponsor us for the coming weeks, you can do it through Fundly, through GoFundMe, and you can do it through Cash App. Now, Cash App is available only in the UK and then in the US. And also I have to remind most of you that we don't have a PayPal, but you can use PayPal through GoFundMe. So that's a good thing. If you simply want to use PayPal, you can go through GoFundMe. We have unfortunately been banned from that. Here we have it on the screen, GoFundMe. Later on we will also put on the screen Fundly, maybe even Cash App. At this point, we are, of course, showing you what this Masonic degrees that talk of reincarnation are all about, which mystery schools of old they are linked to. This is, of course, the 17th degree in a book, of course, from 1884. There is some, it's a traditional old school book, Knights of the East and the West. By the way, this degree was also captured, let's say, by Aleister Crowley for his own OTO system, which he devised, stealing here and there various Masonic degrees. And of course, like I said, this degree in particular, this symbol actually is used also at times for the cover of Albert Pike's book, is basically a degree dedicated to rebirth. And this is actually the jewel, the symbol, central symbol of this degree. We can see the symbol also here in the actual jewel of the degree. And like I said, this degree teaches basically in the Scottish Rite, starts to teach, and then later on we have also the 24th degree, like I said, of the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite that goes even further. And you have a lamb here. You have certain symbols here, certain letters that are very much symbolic of this rebirth. Like I said, there is also another degree, the 24th degree, the Prince of the Tabernacles, within the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite. This is a little bit more specific here. They go a little bit more in detail in the Indian mysteries and the fate of the soul to reincarnate, but at the same time, they also borrow from Jewish tradition, which we will be discussing in a moment, and also with the help of a Jewish rabbi. Welcome everybody who are tuning in from all over the world, I guess, for our show. Here we have, of course, the 24th degree, Prince of the Tabernacle, and of course we show here the degree of the Prince of the Tabernacle, how, there is certain symbols, and of course it talks about further about reincarnation. The actual jewel itself has, as you can see, a very particular and specific Jewish letter, and I think that basically we could go on and illustrate this even further, but of course the time we have is, let's say, limited. So here we are with a lot of people who are tuning in. We have also Freemasons. We have an 18th degree, Knight of the Rose-Croix in the Scottish Rite, an old friend of mine from Australia. We have also Corey from the Grand Lodge of Arizona. So we have a few Freemasons who have tuned in today. I think this is beneficial also for their own, of course, Masonic culture, but in general for all the people who are interested. Now, let's go into the Gilgul, this specific tradition within Judaism, before going into all the various Rosicrucian bodies and their own belief in reincarnations, which are very specific, by the way. Some of them, of course, based also on what I mean in the high degrees as Albert Pike defined them. Gilgul is basically a concept of reincarnation, of transmigration of the soul in Kabbalistic esoteric mysticism. In Hebrew, Gilgul means cycle or wheel, so the wheel of life. We see it also represented in Tarot number 10. Of the major arcana of the tarots. Souls are seen to cycle through lives or incarnations being attached to different human bodies over time. The esoteric explanation of Gilgul were articulated in Jewish mysticism basically by a specific and very much known Ashkenazi rabbi, Isaac ben Solomon Luria, known as Luri. And Isaac ben Solomon Luria is not only venerated today by the Ashkenazi, but also by the Sephardic Jews. And so you have basically not only an Ari Ashkenazi synagogue, which is located in Safed, Israel, in his memory, but you have also another a synagogue established by the Sephardic immigrants from Greece. So it is actually all in one. Let's say this concept of dividing really the Ashkenazi from the Sephardic culture is a little bit wrong in a way, because when it comes to venerating certain aspects of the Jewish culture, especially Isaac Luria, they are kind of like united in this veneration for this incredible figure. So what is this reincarnation all about, and why is not much discussed? It's very much the subject of what this rabbi talks about, which I think is actually very knowledgeable about the subject. And I think that we need to learn about the different aspects of reincarnation also from the people who themselves are actually how can you say, they are directly involved, they are more knowledgeable. So when it comes to Jewish knowledge of reincarnation, I think that this rabbi definitely seems to be very much knowledgeable.
It's always a topic that's difficult to speak about for me personally, because there's so much sensationalism associated with the ideas of reincarnation and past lives and all of that, because human beings gravitate to the exotica, to the unknown. Some of us don't have control over our present lives, and we're more focused on our previous lives. And I find that often it's more an escape, a type of crutch. If I know what I was like in a previous life, maybe it explains some things about my life. But in truth, though there's much to say, it has to be approached in a much more subtle and sophisticated way. That's why I began to appreciate the line that they say about Kabbalah and mysticism. Those that say don't know, and those that know don't say. Because those that truly appreciate and understand Kabbalah and mystical teachings know that it has to be presented in a responsible way. It's not meant to be a drug or a crutch or something sensational, because then it defeats the purpose. And the one word that's important to always remember in this...
I think I like the way that it doesn't want to sensationalize. Of course, you have to understand that not everybody in Judaism believe in reincarnation today, but it is a long-standing tradition, especially for the Yiddish literature within the Ashkenazi Jew. The Ashkenazi Jews tend to believe more in reincarnation. Having said that, even at the time of Jesus, many Jews believed in reincarnation. The usual historian we cited last week, Flavius Josephus, also talks about this. And of course, Jesus himself and the people around him believe in reincarnation. So then we will have to understand when there was this separation from what used to be part of Christianity back at the time of Jesus. When did it all happen? Yes, it's Rabbi Sibon Jacobson. I find him for this specific subject very balanced, but also is important to see how a rabbi these days approaches this subject.
Type of discussions is responsibility. If the teachings lead you to be a more responsible human being, more accountable, more dedicated to growth and introspection, then you know you've reached a certain level of sophistication in these discussions. If it's simply satisfying another sensational whim, and it does not lead to responsibility, and leads more to like excuses or, as I said, crutch, or avoiding the issues, then you know it's not really being studied or taught the proper way. So then, of course, this is the catch-22. Anything I say can be used against me because, as I just said, those that know don't say, and those that say don't know. So if I'll be saying I don't know, well, I'll have to leave you to determine that. But because we do live in, I would say, absurd times, so sometimes in times that are not regular times, irregular times, you have to do irregular measures. And I take the cue from my own teachers and masters who are great Kabbalists. And whatever they did say was only a very little tip of the iceberg of what really was there. But because we live in a time where the teachings of mystical and inner esoteric teachings actually are necessary to create a relationship with your soul, with God, with purpose. And with so many distractions, that's why a certain license was given to address this, even though some may abuse it and some may misuse it, but still, because it can help people, we do speak about these ideas, not necessarily in the full glory, and also in a way that a person has to go and study and exert themselves and immerse themselves, but yet it is given to us. And there's actually an analogy from Rab Shneur Zalman of the Adi on this topic, where he was exactly that, his colleagues, and seemed to challenge his propagating and perpetuating the teachings of mysticism that was always reserved for the elite, for those that appreciated, for those that had really earned their right to enter the inner chambers of the mystical. And at that point, at that moment when they were speaking, a page of one of the mystical teachings, of Hasidic teachings, was seen on the floor. And the colleague pointed to Rab Shneur Zalman. He said, "You see, it's on the floor. It's being abused. It's not even being appreciated. It should be held and cherished. And here it's just on the floor." So Rab Shneur Zalman responded. He said, he gave an analogy, a famous analogy of a child who fell ill, the child of a king. He was the only heir to the throne. And no doctors could not in any way find any way to heal him. Finally, one doctor from some distant land came and said that if we take this rare stone, which is in the king's crown, it was the prime jewel, the crown jewel of the king's crown, and you crush it, means you have to destroy it, and you mix the powder with water, perhaps in the clenched teeth of the comatose child, perhaps that can be an elixir, a healing. The king, without hesitation, what do I need the crown for? What do I need my kingdom for if I don't have my child? So even though much of it will pour on the floor, and only a drop may drop in, and only a doubt that may save the child, is worth it. We live in a spiritually comatose time.
I like this. We live in a spiritual comatose time, and actually we live in a spiritual desert at the moment because everything is focused on the matter rather than the spirit. And those who tend to discuss spiritual matters, they do it for material gains. Now, when it comes to reincarnation, Judaism, like I said, has had a belief in it that has also sadly involved also the heretics, the Sabbatai and Frankists, both Sabbatai and Zevi, of course, as well as Jacob Frank. These were people who were believing in reincarnation. In fact, I discussed the subject of reincarnation in volume 4 of my Confessions very much in detail, also regarding Swedenborg himself thought to be the reincarnation of Ignazio Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, but also in regards to Sabbatai and Frankism. I discuss, of course, reincarnation because it is something that at the time of when of course after Sabbatai Zevi there were various claimants to throne, let's say, of hypothetical messiah of the Sabbateans, and that and there was in particular a guy called Beriaca Russo, who lived between 1695 and 1740, who said he inherited a soul known in Turkish as Otman Baba, who was for some the most credible reincarnation of Zevi's soul. I'm talking about Sabbatai Zevi, who then before that was the founder of this movement, the Sabbateans, that then later on instead found in Jacob Frank the heir of Zevi's soul. Jacob Frank was recognized as the heir of Zevi's soul, and that's why then he gave birth to what is known as Frankism, and that's why now we call it Sabbatean Frankism. So Jacob Frank said he later claimed basically to have inherited Russo's soul in a story that reminds us a bit of those Tibetan lamas. And actually, when it comes down to Tibetan lamas, the Jesuits sent immediately after their foundation, one of their first missions was, of course, in China, but also in Tibet, as they were particularly interested in studying reincarnation. And for that reason, of course, we have then the Swedenborg, who goes studying, I think, in Lyon, the archives of the reports that were done by this Jesuit who came from Tibet to study a little bit more about this subject. A subject, though, that was present in early Christianity. So let's talk a little bit, because, of course, we will go back and discuss reincarnation in Judaism, but of course, reincarnation in Judaism is also something that brings us to talk about the very first, the early Christians. These days, Christians have a negative take on reincarnation, especially when it's pushed by those gurus from the East. I can understand that also because all these gurus from the East were in a way a product of the Theosophical Society, like I said in volume, like I wrote in volume 8 of my confession. So I can understand this thing. But when it comes down to this tradition, first of all, when it comes to the reincarnation in the Jewish culture, it was only codified probably in a book called The Gate of Reincarnations. The Gate of Reincarnation was put together by disciple in particular of Isaac Luria, the Kabbalist who lived between 1534 and 1572, who is still very revered in Jewish culture, both Sephardic and Ashkenazi. And Sha'ar al-Gulim, Gate of Reincarnations, is a Kabbalistic work that defines the concept of reincarnation that really belongs to the Jewish culture. Like I said, this concept was already alive at the time of Jesus, and when, of course, the first Christians started to spread Christianity, they actually believed in reincarnation, and this might be annoying for some people, because, of course, they believe in everything that happened after the reincarnation for early Christians was kind of casted away in 1553. So more than 500 years after the death of Jesus, at the Second Council of Constantinople, the idea of reincarnation was found to have no place in Christian church. Although reincarnation was not officially rejected in this council, those early church fathers who were accused of teaching the idea of reincarnation had their works banned. Having said that, there were some early church fathers who were actually fathers of the church, considered like Origen, who were not banned, and they were still relevant at the time of St. Francis. So we observe that basically Christians today don't have a very good view of reincarnation, because first of all, they don't know their own history. They don't know that actually there was a council that casted out the teachings that actually were prominent amongst early Christians. So this is very important. And when it comes down to the very early Christians, there is definitely the testimony, like I said earlier, of Flavius Josephus, this very important first century Roman Jewish historian and military leader, who in one of his books talks about the concept of reincarnation. Actually, while he's talking with his own soldiers, he's saying to them, he's basically saying to them, that you have to go back to God, but you will be sent back here. And you will be sent back here means that there is a concept that everything goes back to the monad, to God, but then it comes back here. And so there is various Christians in the early in the early part of the church. And like I said, when it comes to Origen is considered one of the fathers of the church. Origen of Alexandria, also known as Origen Adamantius, was one of the earliest Christian scholars, very relevant one, an ascetic, a theologian, that still is viewed as one of the most important sources of the early church. And he was very clear about reincarnation, especially in one publication, which is known as the Contra Celsum, against Celsus. It was an entirely Greek text, which basically the church father wrote against a guy called Celsus, who was a pagan, defending Christianity from the various accusations that Celsus had made. Celsus had made accusations saying that the Christians were basically ignorant. He had accused Jesus of performing his miracles using black magic rather than actual divine powers, that he was plagiarizing his teachings from Plato. Celsus, of course, had to be put back in his place. And Origen wrote this book, a very important one, and there is actually passages of his work that are very clear about the reincarnation. And now I'm going to specifically go on it. Sorry, because we have some technical problem here at the moment. It can happen. Unfortunately, we don't have a big technical means here, and the computer seems to have gone completely ballistic. So let me go back on. Yeah, well, it's not easy. It's not easy. We hope that we can sort it out. Okay, so let's try to fix it here, because of course now we have to fix and take everything off in case there is some interference from it. Okay, so let's go back into what we were discussing, which was reincarnation and Origen. So at least I get it right here. And Origen teached aspects of the reincarnation, and he basically said in his Contra Celsum, is it not rational that the souls are introduced in bodies because of their own merits and actions that preceded them? This is the important aspect, which also reflects a certain belief almost in karma by the early Christians. So if you don't, we should judge them by their seeds. We should, and this is another important statement. There was even Saint Jerome, who was the translator of the very first version in Latin of the Bible. So you can imagine this guy lived between 340 to 420 after Christ, but is considered a very important figure in the church. He translated the first. He said in a letter to Demetria, a Roman matron, he says that there is certain Christian sects in his time that teach the doctrine of reincarnation as an esoteric doctrine, giving it only to certain people as a traditional truth that couldn't be divulged to the masses because they will not understand it. So this was said by Saint Jerome. We're talking about a very important figure in the early church because Saint Jerome, like I said, is the translator of the first Bible in Latin, and he gives us this testimony. There is, like I said, various figures that believed in reincarnation in the early church, including also another important figure of the early church, which was Philo of Alexandria, who was an Hellenistic Jewish philosopher who lived in Alexandria. We discussed Alexandria previously, Christy, because it was the home of culture until the library was destroyed repeatedly and eventually completely eliminated with the arrival of the Muslims. But even at the time of the Roman Empire, there was still some problems, and it was repeatedly attacked because, of course, the knowledge was within this greatest library, said to be the greatest library of the ancient times, was considered dangerous. And so we have to understand that there was a lot of Christians who believed in reincarnation, and then at one point, though, they were faced with a decision. But the decision was almost a political decision. So here I have, I'm not saying we believe or we don't believe. I don't believe in anything here. We are only discussing the beliefs of the early Christians, of the various groups that believes in reincarnation. We are not defining this show with our personal beliefs, because otherwise we will not be teaching the occult secrets of the Illuminati. We will be teaching the occult secrets of the Zagami.
Yeah, an opinion show. Like an opinion show.
Yes, it is not an opinion show. We don't have any opinions here. We are simply relaying the teachings, the beliefs that is important that we understand are the beliefs also of the Illuminati, because in many Illuminati mystery schools there is the belief in reincarnation. Aleister Crowley believed he was the reincarnation of Eliphas Levi, before him Cagliostro. So that was pretty clear. Let's see what this gentleman who lives in the US but is clearly of European origin has to say about reincarnation taught by Christ.
Hi, I'm Hans Wilhelm. This is the second video in the Life Explained series on the topic of reincarnation. In my first video, I explained how reincarnation works. And in this video, I would like to explore with you why this teaching of reincarnation is no longer taught in our churches or religious institutions. Did you know that more than 50% of people in this world believe in reincarnation? Yes, even here in America. Our founding fathers, Franklin, Jefferson, Washington, all shared an enthusiasm for reincarnation. And so did at least a dozen of our presidents, if not more. Well, as also the captains of industry like Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Paul Getty, and many others. What many people do not know is that the knowledge of the re-embodiment of the soul was also known to the early Christians. It's mentioned in the Bible several times. In Matthew and Mark, we find passages of how Jesus asks the question, "Who do the people say that I am?" And his disciples tell him that people think he is John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, or one of the great prophets who has come back as Jesus. And in Matthew, Jesus actually explains twice to some of his disciples that John the Baptist has been the prophet Elijah in a previous lifetime. Why would Jesus teach reincarnations to his disciples? Jesus was a Jew, and so were all his disciples. And for many Jews at the time, reincarnation was a fact of life. It was mentioned in the ancient mystical text of the Kabbalah that teaches the soul cycle, also called the Gilga Neshamot. Even today we have several Jewish denominations that believe in reincarnation, like the Hasidics, the Shabbatniks, and other Orthodox Jewish groups. We know from the writings of the old church fathers like Origen that the knowledge of reincarnation was widespread in Christianity in the first few centuries. But why is this important component of Christ's teaching no longer mentioned in our churches of today? What happened? To find the answer to this question, we have to go back to the 6th century, to the Eastern Roman Empire. You see here the Mediterranean, Italy, you see Greece, Turkey, and the Middle East. Now, the Eastern Roman Empire at the time was ruled by a very powerful emperor called Justinian I. He thought himself as the supreme ruler of the church and the Pope, and even made it a law that nothing could be done in the church contrary to the emperor's will and command. He was a real despot, and to deal with the general war situation in the Eastern Roman Empire and the threatening danger of a domestic political religious war in what is today the Palestine area, he commanded that everybody accepted his style of Orthodox faith, which included the removal of the teachings of reincarnation. He wanted everybody to believe in one single lifetime, and that the priests, or better the church, are the mediators for the salvation of the people. Think about it. You could only go to heaven via the church. It was a powerful tool to control the people. So it was in the year 543 in Constantinople, which of course today is Istanbul, that the teachings of reincarnation was going to be banned because of pressure by Emperor Justinian I. It happened during the Synod of the Eastern Church, a gathering of bishops. But Pope Vigilius knew it was against Christ's teachings, and he strongly opposed the emperor and refused to sign this ban. But nobody can contradict an emperor for long. So 10 years later, on the morning of December 8th, 553, under severe pressure by the emperor, the Pope finally relented and made it a law at the General Council in Constantinople. It wasn't even discussed at the council. No, but this caused a big problem for the church. They no longer could explain the basic questions of life. Where do we come from? Why are we here? And where do we go?
So here we are in front of a very well put together explanation by this Hans Wilhelm. I must say, I didn't really know him, but he put this whole thing together very well. I might not agree with everything he says after, but this part of the presentation was very well put together. As you can see, he has also better probably pronunciation of certain names. Origen or Origin, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not a native American, so I can get it wrong.
Native American.
No, Native American. That's, I know American like my first language. And of course, in the pronunciation also of the Jewish language, I might not also get it very, very right at times. But we want to welcome everybody who is tuned in today, because we are trying with our modest capabilities to explain this big mess, which is the belief in reincarnation, which was then apparently removed by Christianity, but also by mainstream Judaism, because it seems like they are heading towards a complete reformation of all the religions. Now, when it comes to Islam, the situation is very different. There is only a certain group, the Alawis, that really believe in reincarnation. And I wanted to wonder, though, within also the Indian of course, religion, the Hindu, the Buddhist. I wanted to summarize a little bit of this beautiful subject of today, which is very relevant and very important, because you have to understand that once you put in discussion the early teachings of Jesus on reincarnation, because you believe in what was decided by the Roman Empire, well, you are clashing with what the master is saying. And if the master is telling you that he believes in reincarnation, it means that he's gonna reincarnate. Now, that is, of course, a very difficult thing to understand, mostly for the Christians, not for the Jews, who have an understanding, of course, that the Messiah would be more of an earthly, political, and figure than somebody that comes from the clouds. But let's go and understand more about the subject of reincarnation today with some testimonies. I think that is important to wander around. No, Christy? Huh?
Yeah.
How is this episode dedicated to the reincarnation subject, Christy? It's a very complex one.
Yeah. I don't really, like, it doesn't have to do with my life right now, and so I just don't really pay attention to it. I mean, like, if I was reincarnated or not, it's not going to change anything. And God wants you to stay in the now, and he doesn't want you to be in your head thinking about things. So for me personally, as a Christian, I didn't learn that. And so, but, you know, I don't know.
Okay, let's go into the testimony.
I was studying Buddhism, though, and they believe in that. And
let's go in India. Let's go in India. Well, which is also Hinduism.
For millions of people, reincarnation is an accepted fact. They believe when they die, their souls move on to return in another body. We are making huge strides in unlocking the secrets of memory and brain. But for scientists, the soul is a difficult concept.
It's very hard to scientifically prove anything that is related to what is a soul.
Can this child really be the dead wife of this man? And the mother of a boy her own age? Can this girl carry the spirit of a dead teenager? How can they remember their past lives?
But I do believe that reincarnation should be taken seriously.
There are many strange stories of people claiming to remember earlier lives that at first glance defy explanation. Benares, northern India. The holy river Mother Ganges flows through the city. Hinduism is one of the world's oldest religions, with millions of followers. For them, life does not always end in death. Along the banks, funeral pyres for the dead. Only immersing the ashes in the river will release the soul from the cycle of rebirth and suffering in this world. Karma is the Hindu law that controls reincarnation and our places on the ladder of existence. Good deeds will be rewarded, bad punished, giving everyone a chance to redeem themselves. The priests believe it offers comfort.
जैसे सूर्य है, सूर्य की किरणें अनंत हैं. अब वो सूर्य की
Who can count the sunbeams?
कोई गिन सकता है.
The sun is a source of endless beams. There are so many souls. The light begins to die, but their souls come back again and again.
वैसे ही परमात्मा से ये अनंत आत्माएं.
Thousands of tales of reincarnation exist in India. On the 11th of December 1926, a girl is born in Delhi. For Hindus, she was to become living proof of their beliefs. Her name was Shanti Devi. Until the age of 4, she never spoke. When she did, her first words were explosive. She told her mother that her home was not in Delhi, but in a town called Matra, 140 kilometers away. She had lived there in her past life. Her name was Lugdi, and her husband was a man called Kedarnath Chobe. Shanti was able to describe the town in astonishing detail, even though she had never been there. She could even remember how she died, giving birth to her son 7 years earlier. For 2 years, Shanti's parents dismissed her words as fantasy. In the end, her mother decided she could no longer ignore her daughter's vivid descriptions. So one of Shanti's uncles traveled to Matra to investigate her claims. What he found seemed to confirm her story. There was a clothmaker living in the town. His wife Lugdi had died in childbirth the year before Shanti Devi was born. His name was Kedarnath Chobe. Was Shanti, his wife, reborn? Dr. Ravat is one of India's leading specialists on reincarnation. He has spent much of his life retracing Shanti's story and recalls Kedarnath's first encounter with her.
When Kedarnath came to Delhi, and there were a lot of people very curious to know whether Shanti had been talking all nonsense or is there truth in it. But when in the morning, Kedarnath very openly and clearly stated that I am 100% convinced she is Lugdi. The whole thing spread like fire, and hundreds and hundreds of people used to come to see this child.
In the 1930s, India was in turmoil as the country struggled for independence from British rule. Hindus and Muslims clashed violently. Mahatma Gandhi, a Hindu, was seeking a peaceful solution. He moved Devi's story center stage in the wider struggle.
At the same time, India has many people from many other regions also. They said that it is, the whole story is a propaganda done by Hindus in order to promote their religion.
In 1935, Gandhi asked for Shanti Devi to be brought to him.
Shanti told me when she was narrating her incidences that she still remembered, even at the age of 62, that she felt the bones of Gandhi when she was sitting in his lap.
For Hindus, she was living proof that their laws controlled human destiny. But as a belief system, it has its critics. Even inside India, many don't accept karma or reincarnation.
So you see, not everybody accepts karma or reincarnation, but we can say that there was definitely a presence in original Christianity of the reincarnation belief, and also what is known as metempsychosis, or transmigration of the soul. So we have reincarnation in both Judaism and Christianity. We have it cited from many authorities of both traditions, including many Christian saints and fathers of the church, as I showed you, as well as both Old and New Testament. Now, some people, of course, say are critical of what we are stating here. But here we are simply making acquainted with the beliefs of the Illuminati. You can believe in whatever you want, because no, it's not. It's, you know, the fact that Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, like nearly a contemporary of Jesus, recorded that both the Essenes and the Pharisees believed in the rebirth, not in the resurrection of the physical body as it's presently thought, but in the actual rebirth. The Pharisees tell us, say that all the souls are incorruptible, but the souls of good men only are removed into other bodies. But the souls of bad men are subject to punishment lasting for ages. So that is, the good quickly reincarnate to work out the destiny to return to God, whereas the wicked instead undergo great sufferings in the other world, only getting the chance to return to there for further spiritual hope after the lapses of ages. And Flavius Josephus, who is this great historian who lived and who actually, aside from the apostles who talk about Jesus, because of course they knew him, he was the first one to talk about Jesus as an historian. So he's a very famous and very quoted kind of guy. In his Jewish War, Book 3, Chapter 8, Number 5, he says this, and Christy will, of course, read it for us. Christy, here we go.
Do ye not remember that all pure spirits, when they depart out of this life, obtain a most holy place in heaven, from whence in the revolution of ages they are again sent into pure bodies?
Now, he said this to his Jewish soldiers, like I said earlier. He used to talk to his soldiers. Not that he says, do you not remember?
Do you not remember?
So it's like indicating that he had already taught, these people have been taught reincarnation previously. And we also heard from that, I think, German gentleman, but he lives now in the US, so I will call him American, but with a heavy German accent, Hans Wilhelm, that Jesus talked about the reincarnation of Elijah, which of course was supposed to be John the Baptist. And Jesus, the Messiah, says something like this. He says, behold, it's like speaking to a crowd about John the Baptist. He talks about this reincarnation subject. How is it possible that then Christians don't believe in reincarnation? It doesn't make any sense. Matthew 11:10-14 says, this is he of whom it written, behold, I sent my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee, and if you will receive, this is Elias, which was for to come. So, like I said, mentioning the reincarnation of Elias or Elijah is a very important subject for Jesus himself. Words could hardly be clearer, yet Christians today will never accept this truth. Now, I'm not saying that for your belief reincarnation is relevant, because the important thing is that you believe. Then, you can ditch the whole reincarnation thing altogether, but that's your own choice. I mean, as long as you follow the Christian teachings, that's important that you believe that in the end, if you do bad things, even the classical Christian approach is that you will end up in hell, but hell can be also in this life and in many other lives after.
I believe in karma. I believe what goes around comes around.
And so,
yeah, I do believe in that. I really do. So that's probably not.
Now, modern philosopher, writer Robert Graves said about this passage of Matthew, which includes this point about Elijah being reincarnated into John the Baptist. No honest theologian can therefore deny that his acceptance of Jesus as Christ, Messiah, logically binds every Christian to believe in reincarnation, in Elijah's case at least. So, I mean, we have, of course, an incontrovertible understanding that there is something that seems to be, in a way, diminished the relevance is diminished. So why did they diminish the relevance of Jesus' own words? Jesus says in Matthew 7:12, all things whatsoever ye have would that men should do to you, do you even so to them. So he is simply restating in some way here the law that whatever you do to others will in turn be done to you. So karma is present in Christianity. And since he had sowed to his flesh, soul of the flesh reap. So rebirth is present in a way, but also karma is present in Christian teaching.
Thank goodness karma is there. All you bad people are going to get it. It's just coming for you. Karma is coming for you.
Now, when it comes to metempsychosis, that was, of course, what we discussed earlier, also in regards to a belief that Freemasons themselves have in their teachings. But let's also discuss the belief of reincarnation in Rosicrucian orders, because here in the US, one of the first Rosicrucian orders was the Fraternitas Rosicrucis, created in 1861 by Pascal Beverly Randolph. Now, Pascal Beverly Randolph is maybe the most influential Illuminati because his teachings on sexual magic were highly influential for people later on, like Crowley and others. So Pascal Beverly, this guy who was actually a free Negro, a black man who was free before there was the actual liberation of all African American. Pascal Randolph was in a way a pioneer, also not only of integration, but he was definitely a very particular figure. He died in the same year the Theosophical Society was founded, and a lot of his teachings were picked up by the Theosophists. Now, he was an occultist, a spiritualist, transmedian, and he was known for his principle of what is defined as erotic alchemy or sexual magic. And he established the earliest known Rosicrucian order in the United States. While I'm talking about him, about this free black man, like I said, free black man means that he was free before the abolition of slavery in 1865. That's why I said that. And he believed in reincarnation. He actually taught reincarnation within his mystery school. He was very much into this reincarnation, especially with the publication of a book called Dealings with the Dead. Now, Dealings with the Dead talks also about metempsychosis, the transmigration of the soul. Here we are, Dealings with the Dead. This is a very important book. The human soul, its migration and its transmigrations. And as you can see, penned by the Rosicrucian. And of course, it says published by M.J. Randolph, 1861-62. And in this book, we have actually some interesting things that we can pick up. Let me see what I can quickly pick up from this PDF. Regarding metempsychosis. Here we have Pascal Beverly Randolph, who is a very important personality within the Rosicrucians, but also the Illuminati in general. Metempsychosis, or the transmigration of souls from body to body, which doctrine contains some truth as of nearly every notion man entertains, and which took its rise in the plains of Chaldea. So he connects them to the Chaldeans. Was there found and adopted by the great Zoroaster, and then Plato borrowed it. So he goes before Plato, before the Greeks. He ascribes this belief to the Chaldeans. According to Plato, the soul is, it says here, double. That is to say, both material and spiritual. All souls pre-existed. Originally, they were inhabitants of heaven, a place somewhere in the sky, whence they migrated to the earth. The soul mission is to become developed, which process is effect in this wise. Each soul must animate successfully. You can read this, actually, this part here.
Make it very big.
Yeah, I guess so. Can you read it?
Not really. Each soul must
animate.
Is that animate?
Yes,
animate successfully a prodigious number of bodies, every stage of their career occupying not less than a period which may be set down as 100 years and must be repeated an incalculable number of times. They then return whence they came to heaven, are permitted by the gods to remain there for an allotted term, after the expiration of which they are again compelled to go forth and occupy successive bodies as before. Consequently, all human souls are, according to the Platonic theory, destined to
nearly an everlasting repetition of the same general processes.
I could not read that.
Okay. Now, he was not the only Rosicrucian who believed in reincarnation, and that's and there is another important Rosicrucian, this time always connected to America and actually to California in particular. The next two Rosicrucians that we will be discussing are kind of homegrown here. Max Heindel was actually not born in America, but ended up in America. Max Heindel is the other person I wanted to talk about, founder of the Rosicrucian Fellowship. At one point, he was very close to Rudolf Steiner, but he was said to be in contact with an ancient Rosicrucian that in some way communicated with him, with his spirit, and he basically talked very much in detail about reincarnation, and he then founded near San Diego a headquarters which is very picturesque. It's called Mount Ecclesia. Mount Ecclesia was inaugurated in 1920, actually after his death, but it was nearly completed during his lifetime. It's a very characteristic temple, which is since it started, the building of it starting in 1911. The Rosicrucian Fellowship has located their headquarters in Oceanside, California. In 1995, it was added to the National Registry of Historic Places. I can show you a bit from let's say from the sky, how it looks like. It's very inspiring. Apparently, Max Heindel discovered this place while he was visiting the nearby friars of a monastic order. I will show you more about this amazing place, which, like I said, is in San Diego County. And this was the moment in which they were actually inaugurating this place. Here we have the CRC cross and Max and Augusta Heindel flanking the cross. Here we have, this is of course another Rosicrucian body that we are discussing today, because the founder was involved, of course, in the belief of reincarnation. Now, just to show you once again this incredible place, for those who want to go and visit it, it's here in California. I mean, it doesn't really look like California.
Tanya and Julian can go there right by.
It's an incredible place here. It's actually closer to us here, San Diego.
That's cool.
And the ecclesia facing east, the rising sun, of course, like built in a particular way. Okay, so here we have viewed the work a little bit, describing Max Heindel, and his work is not easy, especially when it comes down to to Rosicrucianism and reincarnation, but we can say that at the core of his belief there was this belief that there was an ego is the core of the God-created pure virgin spirit that has lost awareness of its divine origins, enfolded in the various subtle bodies over millennial cycles of involution. And the ego must undergo, for Max Endel, multiple rebirths to gather that experience necessary in order to reclaim and affirm the divine nature of the soul's origin. Now, more specific than him in regards to reincarnation was another gentleman called Spencer Lewis, the founder of Amorc. But before we go there, I still want to show you this book by Max Endel in which he defines his reincarnation beliefs. It's an important book, The Rosicrucian Cosmoconception by Max Endel. And as you can see, it's the international headquarters of Rosicrucian, Mount Ecclesia. This is the address. And this is Max Endel. And in this book, there is, first of all, a creed or Christ. No man loves God who hates his kind, who tramples on his brother heart and soul, who seeks to shackle, cloud, or fog the mind by fears of hell, has not perceived our goal. I find these words very interesting, very beautiful. God sent are all religious blessed, and Christ the way, the truth, and life, to give the heavy laden rest and peace from sorrow, sin, and strife. At his request, the universal spirit comes to all the churches, not to one alone. One Pentecostal morn, a tongue of flame round each apostle as a halo shone. This, and we could go further, but of course there is everything regarding Rosicrucian symbolism. A word to the wise, the founder of the Christian religion, stated an occult maxim when he said, whosoever should not receive the kingdom of God as a little child should not enter the reign. This is Mark 10:15. All occultists recognize the far-reaching importance of this teaching of Christ. So here we are, of course, going through the work of Max Endel. This is the 7 words as he defined them. The work consists of 7 regions, the virgin spirits, and it's a very complex.
Yeah, it is.
It's a very complex system. Instead, there's more easy, honestly, the work of another very important Rosicrucian who, in a way, made the Rosicrucian accessible to everybody. I don't agree with that. I actually argued with the representatives of Amorc over and over again in Norway, in Italy. They came to my conferences. We always get in a fight around this concept of popularizing Rosicrucianism in the way Spencer Lewis did. But whatever. I mean, it became almost like, you know, like it's like a course, a correspondence course, you know, like you send out things and you say, this guy's a Rosicrucian. How can you become a Rosicrucian with a correspondence course? I mean, it's beyond me. Maybe I'm too aristocratic, maybe too elitarian in my views, but for those who don't know who this guy is, H. Spencer Lewis, around 100 years ago, went to France, picked up a Rosicrucian charter, and then brought back here to America, in particular to Northern California, San Jose, California, what is now known as the ancient mystical order Rosicrucis. For those who don't know where these headquarters are, we even have a geolocalizer here. For those who want to go and visit it, there is actually a Rosicrucian Park. It's a rather beautiful place. There is actually a museum in which there is also some interesting things. This is in San Jose. And he dedicated a whole book to the belief in reincarnation. But his belief in reincarnation is a little bit less complex in a way. He wrote a book that we will now show to you. I should have it here somewhere. Of course, he also had instructions for the high degrees of his order, which included at times these topics. I'm going to first show you one of the instructions for the high degree. This is probably the highest degree of the Rosicrucian order. Master monograph, temple section, Rosicrucian order, Amor, 11th degree, which is considered the highest. And this is by the Supreme Grand Lodge of Amorc. This is not purchased, loaned. Nobody can. And this week's consideration of famous opinion. And of course, here you have the 11th degree, which is the Illuminati degree. It's considered the Illuminati degree of the Amorc system. And he wrote a book about reincarnation known as Mansions of the Soul. Here we have, of course, we could discuss also Paul Foster case, but we don't have all that time to include, but we should discuss in the future Paul Foster case in his own order, which of course is the Bota. It's a very interesting order as well. Mansions of the Soul, the cosmic conception. This is basically what Spencer Lewis says. He wrote a whole work on reincarnation, which the evolutionary cycle of the soul is from birth to rebirth, has two phases: the mundane phase from birth to death, and the cosmic phase from post-death to rebirth. At birth, the entering soul is an aggregate of personalities, because you are composed of the essential elements of all your previous personalities. But then, out of this aggregate, a present personality is formed. So you see, you are a result of your past lives, but then a present personality is born. So here you don't have a belief that you are reincarnated at the same personality, but you are actually kind of piling up one by one all your past lives, and you are then forging a new one, though, and living the moment. In fact, it's with your own present personality in the teachings of Spencer Lewis. So it's formed, the current incarnation is strongly informed by past skills, knowledge, and beliefs, Christy. What do you think of this explanation?
Oh, no, I'm really confused.
Well, it's confused, but actually this one is a little bit more clear, if we want, than the ego concept, because here you have basically at death or transition, the soul withdraws with its light and aura properties into the ego of soul, consisting of mind, memory, and personality, and is then absorbed into what is known as the oversoul, leaving the body to decay and disintegration. The transphysical ego souls of the departed dwell in one of 12 mansions of the soul. That's why this book is called Mansions of the Soul, each of which is given various names and allegorical representations.
Where do they get all this from?
Well, this is, of course, when it comes down to Amorc, they claim that this is from the ancient Rosicrucian teachings. So,
and where's that from?
Well, the Rosicrucian teachings are, let's say, laid down within the realm of esoteric Christianity. So we can say that esoteric Christianity often borrows from Gnosticism, from those esoteric elements of Alexandria, of Egypt. I talk about this symbol in one of my confessions, but somebody's saying I have a pile of the monographs. In fact, there is definitely a pile of monographs that one could study. Let's go back into the Jewish gentleman here. And let's see what he says.
And dispassionate and indifferent to what happens inside the appliance. The dialogue I mentioned is an imaginary dialogue. In the case of a soul is with a personality. When you do a good deed, when you warm someone else's heart, when you do a loving gesture, when you bring light into this world, whether it's for a family member or it's for a stranger or for yourself or for anyone, your soul is enriched by it because the soul is actualized in the process. I've discussed this a number of times. The soul is the soul has faculties. And just like the body needs to be exercised, each muscle in its own way, each part of the body in its own way, the soul also needs exercise. How do you exercise it? By using it. So if the soul has chesed, has kindness in it, by being kind, not only you're helping the other, you're helping yourself because you're exercising and conditioning the spiritual muscle called kindness. So the soul is more than just a life force, electricity. It's electricity with an experience. Electricity experiences that kindness and gets stronger. If, God forbid, a person does not actualize their kindness, so it remains dormant, and it's like a faculty that you've never used. And how sad. And then the soul has in this way not been affected. And in a way you could also say it's gone backwards. That soul will need to return to finish that, to actualize itself. So the soul carries the memories of the experiences that it experiences in this world. And memory is not just as a memory, it's in its so-called memory banks. And it defines the soul's journey as it continues on, both in satisfying and giving deep pleasure into the actualization of the soul when it does fulfill its part of the mission, and also the pain and the fact that the deprivation that it experienced by not fulfilling it. So when the soul returns, the soul feels compelled actually to finish the job. It's like saying, I wasn't finished, I need to come back and do it right, and correct the wrongs, or improve, or fulfill things that were not done. It takes on a whole new approach to life when you think of it this way. And that's why it's relevant for us to know. If it leads us to being more responsible, to being more introspective, to be more deliberate and more methodical, what you could say, more, what's the word I want to use, more accountable about every experience, knowing that this experience is coming your way for a very particular reason, because you need to do something here. It leads and introduces a new sense of urgency to all of our lives, to every detail, because no detail is too small. Everything is part of this larger mission. So yes, we each are on a mission in this world. That mission will be accomplished by hook or by crook, hopefully in our lifetime. And if not, there's an immune system at work that will make sure it will get done. Now we're also told, since I said in our lifetime, where do we stand now? We're told that most of the Gilgulim have been finished, which means most of the work has been done in refining this world. And we're now at the last stage, maybe the last reincarnation. But that's really another discussion. I don't want to go into detail. It just, you have to think of life as a cumulative. The fact that we live in a world that has so much humanitarianism.
Very interesting this. We are maybe at our last incarnation, Christy. It's interesting.
Thank goodness.
It's very interesting how he's putting it through. A very clever Rabbi Simon Jacobs. And it seems like he gets it. He gets it. It's interesting how we have put you through various traditions today. We definitely need to understand the Hindu tradition with this brief excursion into it. I think that is very clear what reincarnation is in Hinduism. So let's listen to this lady for a second.
Namaskar and welcome to Culture Express. This episode adds to our Culturescape playlist where we talk about some interesting aspects of Indian culture. Today, I shall tell you a little about a fundamental premise of Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism. Along with dharma, karma and cyclical time, the idea of reincarnation or rebirth is central to Hindu religious thought. Coming to think of it, the three are interconnected and dominate popular Hindu imagination thanks to the Bhagavad Gita. The very famous verses 7 and 8 from chapter 4 of the Gita enshrine these ideas. We hear Krishna declare to Arjuna, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam Vinashaya cha dushkritang, dharma sansthapanataya, sambhavami yuge yuge. In these shlokas, Krishna is telling Arjuna that whenever there is decay of righteousness, O Bharata, there is exaltation of unrighteousness, then I, myself, come forth for the protection of the good, for the destruction of evildoers. For the sake of firmly establishing righteousness, I am born from age to age. We see the concepts of recurring ages and births right here. And it isn't restricted to Krishna, who is God. In another verse, he tells Arjun that they both have been born many times in the past, just that he remembers them all, but Arjun does not. The idea is reinstated in many of our scriptures and sometimes through Jati Smaras. These are rare people who remember their past lives. True men of God are also supposed to have this ability. Underlying this belief in reincarnation is the idea of an eternal soul that stems from the Supreme Brahman and merges into it in the end. In between happens the transmigration of the soul, where it goes from one body to another, learning, gathering experiences, and hoping to spiritually elevate itself until it gets a human birth. The body is a garment that the soul discards after a period of time and takes up another body. What dies is a person's gross body. His subtle body carries forth the essence of his life and his learnings. In the interim, this subtle body or soul goes to certain lokas or ethereal planes of existence, where he either enjoys the fruits of his good actions or suffers for his bad ones. But if the soul has some strong unfulfilled desires from his last life or some unsettled karmic scores, he is drawn back to the earthly realm. The idea of reincarnation is a very helpful one in explaining the most seemingly unfair facts of life. Say, children born into abject poverty, or good people suffering endlessly from horrible diseases. It is hard to explain why some people should have such a hard lot in life when they haven't even hurt a fly. It must have something to do with their actions in the past life. Or take even the case of child prodigies. How else does one explain a Mozart, for example, without a lifetime of learning that got carried forward? We may or may not be Mozarts and we may not remember, but we all carry within ourselves the cumulative effect of all our karmas. But this does not imply that one is stuck in the cycle of birth and death for eternity. In fact, it is quite the opposite. The theory of karma offers you choice. Hindu texts claim that a human birth is most precious because it is only as a human that one can consciously walk the path of righteousness, seek enlightenment, and attain moksha or liberation. Well, we certainly hope we are making good use of ours. Namaskar.
It reminds me of when I was a child in India. I was 6 years old. My father brought me there, and then
I have deja vu.
yes. Well, I mean, memories of past lives. Who knows? We definitely have discussed today something that is interesting, but is also very controversial. I should ask my dear friend how I pronounce Virgo. Virgo? Virgo National? Action National? I think maybe that's the right pronunciation. Let's remember that in the Jewish tradition there is also this concept of the Tikkun Olam, which is basically a concept which intends to repair and improve the world. So this phrase in classical rabbinic literature, it's basically intended to preserve the social order. And at times it's connected with our own reincarnation. The fact that we are doing a tikkun olam here, this plane of existence in this world of ours. The establishment of godly qualities throughout the world should be our aim, whatever religion we follow. Sound is gabble. The sound is a little bit okay. Just a second. Here we are with Rambo. I think now the sound is probably going to be a little bit better. At times, unfortunately, we have.
I woke him up. because it's not such a dark show, so I feel okay bringing him out. When we do the really dark shows, I don't want to bring him out.
Oh, Rambo, how are you?
Because he's precious.
Oh. Did he have a past life?
I think I don't know. He's like a little bit human. Like he's 15. He was 15 years old yesterday.
Yesterday was Rambo's birthday, by the way. So
he's 15 now.
15.
And he's doing good.
He's doing good.
I tell him he's young every day. I say age is just a number, and you're only as young as you feel. I say always also you're only as young as you look.
That's okay. I hope that you all enjoyed this show. We didn't want to really push anything here. We want to simply define the beliefs of the Illuminati. It was interesting how this Indian lady referred to Mozart, who was a member of the Illuminati. Yeah. Mozart, who I talk about in the last chapter of Volume 8 of my Confessions, which is an important book that I hope you will purchase. I still have the name of Rabbi Simon Jacobs. I should take it off. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I could actually put some other thing that I wanted to put. Fundly, for those who want to help us out, you can do it with GoFundMe, you can do it with Fundly, you can do it with Cash App. So let's put Fundly on the screen. Hello to everybody who has viewed this show, and have a great week. We will be back next week with another interesting subject, Christy. This week, I must say, Christy was the one who decided the subject of this week, because she said, I want to do a show Reincarnation.
Yeah.
And so we did the show Reincarnation.
But now he's doing a show on
Initiation.
So
next week, either Saturday, Sunday, we have to decide. Probably it's going to be Saturday.
I like Sunday.
But we can take
which day should we do?
Well, I mean, depends from the viewers. We seem to have more viewers on Saturday, but we will experiment. We will experiment. Like I said, initiation. It's a very important subject, initiation.
Yep.
So, I mean, initiation, guys. So I guess you will have a lot to say about this subject. People seem to prefer Sunday. Okay. Let us know. Write to us at ordoilluminatorum@gmail.com. Our email is usually provided in the description of this video. Just write to us. I prefer Saturday, I prefer Sunday. No? And then share this video, put like, and let's put the sound, the dance macabre. So, bye-bye to Bruce, one of our sponsors, Pina, Oli Areos, Sean Rose. Thank you to these sponsors. Thank you to all the
Corey
people.
Also,
Corey, hello, Corey, and thank you. And if you want to know more about Reincarnation, this book, Volume 4, is a good one, because...
calm down.
He's being wild.
Now you can go and take him out since he's awake now.
Joseph mentioned a rabbi who I know very well, because I dedicated a special to him, who people say is the Messiah. Maybe we can go back on this subject, Joseph. Joseph Dubian is a member of the Grand Lodge of Israel, by the way. He's not so active, I think, anymore in Freemasonry, but Joseph, I know, is a member of the Grand Lodge of Israel. So, I mean, we had people from all over the world today. Take care, guys.
Go get your cookie.
Au revoir, shalom, bye-bye. And amen for this great show.